Jeffrey Epstein's last will and testament has finally been released. For years, we were not able to see what was in it because of some complicated legal maneuvering. Epstein had his assets in a trust, and the distribution of those assets was entirely secretive. That is, until now. There are 42 different people to which Jeffrey Epstein's vast wealth was distributed. We'll go through each name one by one. The first is Karina Shuliak. She was Jeffrey Epstein's final girlfriend, and these documents show that they actually considered getting married, although whether they actually did or not is unclear. She is by far the largest recipient of Jeffrey Epstein's wealth. When Epstein died, she received $50 million immediately, to be followed by $50 million distributed annually through what is called an annuity. She received Jeffrey Epstein's entire real estate portfolio almost. She received the entire New Mexico ranch, which is over 7,000 acres, around 7,600 acres, I believe. That property is dotted with various ornate, lavish structures. And on top of that, she received almost every object that was within the ranch. Although the sale price of the New Mexico ranch is unknown, it was definitely in the tens of millions of dollars. She got the same from the entire Little St. James Island and everything in it, all of the trucks, all of the cars, everything that is required to maintain the island she received as a distribution through Jeffrey Epstein's will. That property alone sold for about $60 million. She got the same from the Paris estate and got everything in it. That property sold for $11 million. She got the entire Palm Beach mansion and everything in it. That property sold for $18.5 million, and it was later torn down and redeveloped for quite a profit. She also received the entire New York mansion, which is the largest private residence in New York City. That property sold for about $51 million. She also received $5 million to help with the maintenance of each property, totaling $25 million. She also received a diamond ring that we'll talk about in a moment, and 48 diamonds. Those diamonds all came with Gemological Institute of America identification numbers, which you can actually look up and see the condition of the diamond and plug into AI and get a rough estimate. I did that for 48 different diamonds, and the estimate came out anywhere from $400,000 to about $700,000. The ring is interesting because when it is noted in the will, there is a little handwritten section that reads, "Prior to execution of this trust agreement, I had given Karina Shuliak the diamond ring described below in contemplation of marriage, in the event that the marriage is not consummated," and then they give a contingency plan. We don't know if they actually did get married. Those records are private, and you have to be actually a party to the marriage to request them, unfortunately. So the total value of the money given to Karina Shuliak, Jeffrey Epstein's last girlfriend, is anywhere from $260 million to about $300 million. It's often been quoted that she is a dentist, but let's be honest, nobody is working as a dentist after receiving this kind of money. So let's talk about Darren Indyke, Jeffrey Epstein's personal lawyer and one of his closest confidants. He received $50 million. A person often mentioned with Darren Indyke is Richard Kahn, Jeffrey Epstein's mysterious accountant. He received $25 million. Kahn and Indyke actually allegedly arranged a sham marriage between two women that is detailed in the Wall Street Journal. I'll just read a section here. It says, in 2016, a letter was drawn up for U.S. immigration officials with a glowing endorsement. It described a, quote, very healthy marriage between two women, their bond so deep that they, quote, often complete each other's sentences. Its author, a New York accountant named Richard Kahn, said he had personally witnessed the women's passion for each other during meetings. He had his signature notarized to make it official. But the marriage turned out to be a sham. Kahn prepared the letter on behalf of his longtime boss and patron, Jeffrey Epstein. The convicted sex offender was trying to secure U.S. papers for an Eastern European woman he wanted to keep in the country. The plan required a spouse. Epstein had pressured an American woman that he had abused into marrying the woman, and Kahn's letter gave it legitimacy. Interestingly, although we don't know who this woman was, it was apparently not the first time that had happened. In 2013, Karina Shuliak, the woman that we had just spoken about, took place in a sham marriage to a woman named Jennifer Kalin. Shuliak is a Belarusian woman, making this not the first time that Jeffrey Epstein had organized an immigration scam in order to keep an Eastern European woman in the country. The next 7 names are redacted, meaning that these are probably women, although we don't know their ages. The first received $10 million, The second, I wonder if they are a minor or a child of someone that Jeffrey Epstein knows, because they received $10 million and then $5 million at someone else's discretion. That would only make sense if there was a parental figure involved, is my guess. The next person receives $10 million. The person after that receives $5 million. The person after that receives $10 million. The person after that receives $3 million. And the person after that receives $5 million. Then we come to Larry Vizosky, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime pilot. His daughter actually got married at Jeffrey Epstein's Santa Fe ranch, and Larry Vizosky received $10 million. Vizosky also owned a home at the ranch, which you can learn more about at the video on the right. I'll link it up in the corner. I go through every home on Jeffrey Epstein's property. There are several people whose photos I do not have. They've effectively hid themselves from the internet. The first is Bella Klein. She was an accountant for Jeffrey Epstein. She received $3 million. The person after that is Luciano Fontanilla Jr. He goes by Jojo. Both he and his wife Lynn worked for Jeffrey Epstein, and he received $3 million. They also received a home on Long Island that I had never come across before. I actually looked a little bit into this home, but I just was not able to find his name, Jeffrey Epstein's name, or the name of any nebulous company on the property records. Jojo and Lynn are kind of infamous for all the photos that they have of various celebrities that visited Jeffrey Epstein's various properties. We can see Chris Tucker, Prince Andrew, and Epstein himself wearing a Harvard sweater. We have Merwin Dela Cruz, whose photo I was not able to find anywhere. He received $3 million for serving as Jeffrey Epstein's house manager in New York City. We have Valdson Kotrin. He was one of the most important people in Jeffrey Epstein's Paris estate. He received $5 million for serving as a butler of sorts. He would kind of drive people around, make food, things like that. And if you're familiar with this photo of Jeffrey Epstein, that is Valdson Kotrin on the right. And the reason that the photo became popular is that Jeffrey Epstein is wearing an Israel Defense Forces hoodie. I found this kind of interesting. Ghislaine Maxwell is actually in Jeffrey Epstein's will, and you would think that for all the decades that she spent near him that she would get more money, but she got $10 million. There are people that did a lot less for Jeffrey Epstein than Ghislaine Maxwell and received a lot more. Anne Rodriguez, with a Q, not a G, was a sort of island assistant on Jeffrey Epstein's Little St. James. She received $5 million. There is a redacted name that received $3 million. And then we have Dave Rogers, who was another pilot often mentioned alongside Larry Vizosky. He received $4 million. Peter St. Omer received $1 million. He was a kind of laborer on Jeffrey Epstein's island, kind of doing whatever landscaping or things like that needed to be done. Not exactly sure how to pronounce this name, but we'll call him Dupson Donasaint. He was also a laborer on Jeffrey Epstein's island, and he received $1 million. Pierre Jules received $1 million as well. He did the same thing as the two previous guys. Interestingly, Cecile de Jong, the former First Lady of the U.S. Virgin Islands, received $1 million. Their connections go way back with Jeffrey Epstein. She was allegedly an employee of his, receiving payments from him, and on top of that, Jeffrey Epstein apparently put her children through college. The connections to the Virgin Islands go deeper when we talk about Jeanne Brennan Weibrecht. She received $1 million, and she and her husband, Matthias, are all throughout the Epstein files if you search their names. Next, there's Jermaine Ruan. He received $1 million. He was an IT manager for Jeffrey Epstein's island. And interestingly, if you look at his LinkedIn, he's currently working for the government of the U.S. Virgin Islands Bureau of Corrections. Kind of a dark irony there. Obviously, his work for Jeffrey Epstein is not noted on LinkedIn, but what is from 2000 to 2022, 22 years, he worked as a technician for STC, a company based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But I'm sure that's nothing. Daphne Wallace was an accountant on Jeffrey Epstein's island, and she received $1 million. Next, we have two redacted names that received $2 million and $3 million, respectively. Next, there's Bryce Gordon. He and his wife actually were the ranch managers of the Zorro Ranch. They are extremely mysterious figures and have totally dropped off the face of the earth. They're fascinating. I would love to know more about them, but they're almost impossible to track down any information about. They received $2 million. After that, there are three redacted names that received a combined $8 million. Next, there's Edward Rod Larson. He is the son of a Norwegian diplomat, and he received $5 million. After that, there's Martin Novak. He received $5 million. He is a Harvard mathematics professor and has really some of the creepiest eeriest emails in the files that have just been released. I plan to dig into this a little bit more in a future video, but we'll give a little glimpse here. In 2014, quote, in one email conversation between Novak and Epstein, the former says, quote, our spy was captured after completing her mission. To this, Epstein replies, did you torture her? Next, we have Palm Beach house managers Arlene and Carluz Toilo. They are also hard to find information about, but what is clear is that they received a combined $2 million. There's a name that's redacted that received $5 million, and then after that, there's a woman named Una Pascal. She worked for the Southern Trust Company as an accountant and received $1 million. Now, what's interesting about Una Pascal, if you Google her name, and if you Google Gian Brennan Wybrecht, the woman that we just spoke about, they both work for the same organization, the Community Foundation of the Virgin Islands. So that's just kind of interesting. I wonder if anybody else that worked there was affiliated with the island. Mark Epstein is obviously Jeffrey Epstein's brother. He's sort of a real estate investor, kind of a weird guy. He received $10 million, the same amount as Ghislaine Maxwell. I had never heard this guy's name before, Dr. Perry Bard. He is a South Florida chiropractor, and he received $3 million. A name that is redacted received $3 million, and Darren Indike's wife, Michelle Fern Cipher, received $3 million on the condition that she was still married to Darren Indike. They are still married, so they received the $3 million. What's equally illuminating to the different names that were on Jeffrey Epstein's will is who was in charge of the will. Darren Indike and Richard Kahn, Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer and accountant respectively, were the main people involved. But if one of them was not able to serve as a trustee of Jeffrey Epstein's will, say if one had a heart attack and died or got hit by a car, something like that, what would happen is that a man named Boris Nikolic would serve as a trustee. Nikolic was a Serbian fashion designer. He was also an investor. He was close with Bill Gates up until they had sort of a falling out. And I believe that Jeffrey Epstein and he made a connection around their relationship with Bill Gates, and then it deepened later on. If he was not able to serve, the man that would follow is Barnaby Marsh. He's sort of an investment guy, an Oxford PhD. If he was not able to serve, Anthony Barrett, really one of the most mysterious associates of Jeffrey Epstein, would take over. Barrett is tied with Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark, but really other than that and his involvement in various real estate deals, there's not that much that we know about him. He's pretty fascinating and mysterious. If he was not able to serve, then Kathy Rumler, one of the former White House lawyers for Obama, would step in. If she was not able to serve, then David Mitchell, who is very mysterious, it's hard to find any information about him, would step in. If Mitchell could not serve, then a man named Stephen Hansen, about whom there is very little information as well, would step in. And following that, Eva Dubin, one of Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriends and really one of his closest friends, would step in that case. Epstein distributed hundreds of millions of dollars, but according to the New York Times, there's still more. Quote, Epstein's estate had about $127 million in assets remaining as of September 25th, according to the most recent publicly available quarterly accounting. Since Epstein's death, the estate has been mired in litigation and dealings with creditors. It has paid out $125 million to over 100 victims as part of a compensation program, and hundreds of millions of dollars more for taxes, victim settlements, and other expenses. In other words, decades and decades after Jeffrey Epstein began his criminal ring, only about 100 out of an estimated 1,000 or more victims received any money, and the money that has been paid out is less than was paid to his girlfriend, only one person out of 42 on his will.